Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is the ECS Hangout. If you've heard from it before, it is a big deal. We do this every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time where we talk about all things automotive, car clubs, car shows, you name it, everything out there. If it has to do with cars, we talk about it. And I am your moderator for the night, if you will. My name is Primo. And yeah, we're going to have some good guests on. Before I introduce everybody, I want to make sure that you know that you can check us out on Facebook, IG, YouTube, and Twitter. Remember, this is an open forum, so you'll be able to talk to the guests via the chat. And I don't want everything. It's like I'm not here to just kind of just yap and ask questions to everybody. I want everybody to have an opportunity to kind of discuss with each other about the things that they want to talk about, and then kind of share thoughts. And then, like I said, if you have something that you want to put in the Facebook or YouTube chat area, we'll see it. We can pull it up, and you can ask anybody here in our fine panel about those questions, and we'd be happy. And first up is Tyler, who says, "What's up, Reggie?" So again, my username, if you will, is Primo, and the first up down below me is going to be Reggie, who is the owner and operator of ECS Magazine. Do you need say anything today, Reggie? No, he's good. Next up is going to be our local, I'm going to say editor slash master of all car shows and everything to my right is going to be Joel. Joel, say hi and tell everybody what you're about.
I'm Joel Chappell, and I'm with NewEnglandAutoShows.com, and it is the master list of all the local car shows within New England.
I have actually seen that you are getting some really crazy hits on your website, huh?
Yeah, it's it's been a slow growth since 2017, and it's been kind of organic, and I'm trying to do as much as I can, like naturally. But we're over 207,000 hits for the year.
Nice.
Last year we did 221,000, so the year's not over yet. So we might still break it.
Yeah, do it up, man. All right, and last but not least, Santos, would you like to introduce yourself and tell everybody what you're about?
Hey, good evening, everybody. I have a 2015 Jetta and a 2017 Chrysler Pacifica. It's a minivan you've never seen before. You don't see a lot of modified minivans out there.
We actually, I think, have had a lot on our show, come to think of it.
Oh, nice.
Minivans are kind of our thing at this point. But Kennedy says, "Hey, what's up, everyone? Hey, what's up, Kennedy?" And Joel, I am under the impression. Well, actually, before we do that, remember that our sponsor is, as always, Control Freak, controlfreakcompany.com. Head over there to get you some fine remote equipment. So, Joel, I'm sorry. You had something that you wanted to, I'm going to say, be admonished about between shows. Is that how it went?
It's not so much as admonished as I was a little premature in an announcement. So
premature announcements, I have that problem.
Yes, don't we all? They make pills for this, apparently.
Yes, they do.
So apparently last week I had announced that the New England International Auto Show was a go for 2023.
I know what you're going to say.
And so when I went to go get my press pass credentials, I realized, I actually did my email inquiry about getting it, and I was informed that although the website says there is a date, it is in fact incorrect. They have actually canceled the 2023 date already.
And I believe they gave a reason too.
It is the same reason that 2021 was canceled, which is that due to the fact that the Dealers Association cannot supply the vehicles. They
so there's an actual association to this, or like?
Yeah, it's funny. I thought that these particular ones were, or this particular one was actually still pretty much supplied by like the actual manufacturers, but it is in fact like a conglomeration of like actual dealers who then like kind of like supply the cars for each. They'll. I don't want to say that they sacrifice a car, but they at least like supply the cars and for this. But
they sacrifice a car.
Yeah, but then they get it back, or they get one back from the manufacturer, kind of things. But that be that as it may, unfortunately, there are still supply issues, and that they felt they couldn't do as good of a show as they didn't have enough representation from each of the car manufacturers that they were hoping to get.
Yeah. And now, do you think that that's going to be something we see representative of like all the shows out there, or do you think it's going to be specific just to the Boston show?
I will not go on record to say that like the Detroit show is going to be a definite, and I think it will. For 2023. I can't imagine that it won't be, and I'm I think the major one. Unfortunately, New England is not considered like the major representation of the International Auto Show.
That's sad.
It is, and it's funny because the more I think about it, and the more I think about how it should be, because of the extreme climate of New England.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying the extreme climate of cold. I'm saying the extreme opposite climates that happen in New England, because we get extreme summers and we get extreme cold, and snow and that type of thing.
You don't get to test snow tires in Vegas. I'm just saying.
No, you don't. But the other thing is you don't also get to test like 8-cylinder all-wheel drive Lexus vehicles, like you can in New England, and so I think that's I think if there was any climate and culture that could actually be a definitive representation of what the consumer market is looking for in all areas, I think New England is that area.
Well, one thing, New England is really, and I'm going to use the word weird. It's not weird, but it's just there's some very cool things.
It's eclectic. I think eclectic.
I like that. But
I think eclectic is actually a good one.
But things like Saab, Saab was living off of its existence through New England. I thought that was funny to think about that. But we still have I think there's a car in Acton, which was the last ever produced car or something, and it's sitting in a dealership right up the street from us. I just think that's really weird. And there's other brands and other things that we kind of get into here that I kind of think that it's not the same ever. I think that every place has their car, but like
I think New Hampshire was actually almost the number one distributor of Renault for American Renault.
Did you know that New England had the most Grand Nationals when they were made?
New England had the most Grand Nationals, and by the way, the number 2 Corvette dealership, possibly number 1, but I think it's still number 2, is McMulkin Chevrolet in Nashua, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So, that just blows my mind when you actually like think about that, and yet New England gets like so little attention within the car world.
Well, let me ask this to Santos, if you can. Well, obviously, we have the New England car show, the big one. Then we have Detroit, which is, I think it's about 7 or 8 hours from here. But the other ways, we have these 2 northern events. What is kind of the southern area's kind of big car show thing that everybody goes to that, that is kind of to a manufactured car, not like aftermarket or anything like that? Like you can go there and you can sit in a car and kind of feel it out and say, hey, this is a car I might like to drive. What do you have down there?
So we have over here, as I live in the Raleigh-Durham area, so we have the Raleigh International Auto Show. That's basically once a year, and like you said, you can go into the cars, jump in there, get a feel for them. We actually went last year, and I drove around a couple Broncos around the block. So
nice. Yeah. See, we're not going to get that year, Joel.
I know.
What's going on? I can't.
And it's awful.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to the topic tonight. And if you guys had noticed on the little area up top there, it says built or store bought. So basically, this is the old argument of built or bought. And I want to make sure that everybody out there in the comments, let's hear what you have to say about that. Is built your thing or is bought your thing? And I think that's funny because there's a lot of people, I think, that I think that bought is kind of looked down on in certain ways. But I also now see, here's the thing, Tyler. Before you start saying built, I'm going to add something to it. What is built? So that's something I want to do. Two in things. I want to say first is I want to get to the topic of kind of, is bought really a bad thing? Is it really, like, in other words, are there people out there that can say, look, I just want a performance car. I don't want to worry about stuff. I want to have somebody else build it for me. One thing I've noticed, and Santos, tell me if I'm wrong here, but one of the things that I see appears is they used to have dealerships, and this was a while ago, that were trying to put together certain things. In other words, you could have a car that was built, but it was the idea that that they were built to get, in other words, like all the aftermarket work was done and you built the car that way. And I think what they did was they had very huge troubles getting banks to really take loans out for them. Do you have anything down there that is the same kind of thing? In other words, you go to a store, you see an aftermarket car and you buy it the way it sits, or is it more they try to, just like every other dealership, they try to get back to as much stock as possible?
So I'll tell you that I bought my Jetta. It had maybe an intake on it and wheels on it. That's about it. They didn't try to take anything off it to try to make it look back to stock Jetta. So I have been to a few dealerships out here, and I have seen some cars with like front lips, wraps, some custom paint jobs. So it seems that out here, not all dealers will try to get them back to their stock look. Maybe just be cost effective, but it could also just be the market around here with a lot of people wanting to have those type of cars.
Yeah. And that brings in the next subject of, in other words, bought car is the idea that maybe it's something you can't do yourself. Tyler says, but if you don't have the time to build, you have to pay to have it done. And Kennedy, by the way, I didn't miss your comment. You said that could be a touchy topic. By all means, let's touch away. I think that's the idea of being an open topic. We're not here. You know what? I hope that nobody that comes on here gets offended at what we're going to say here. It's a learning experience. And some of us have our predilections about certain things. In other words, what I see as built is going to be completely different than what somebody else has seen as built. And I think the idea, if we're going to talk about the subject, we need to at least clarify, because somebody will say, oh, you know what? I put an exhaust and an intake on it. That's built, right? And what are you using it for? Do you know what I mean? Is that a track thing, or is it, how does everybody feel about that? So that's the thing is I want to hear all those different areas in there, and that's why I'm starting with bought first, because it's a little easier that way. But yeah, that's the thing is so, and I'll start back with you, Santos, is, how do you feel about that? If somebody comes up to you and they said, look, I didn't build this car. I took it to a place. I told them what I want. I put all the stuff together. Or maybe they just said, hey, you know what? I wanted to buy a Ferrari and that's 500 horsepower and that's all I need. And they're happy about it. What do you think?
Yeah, that's what when you say bought, that's what I think, like supercars, performance cars that people just don't want to touch and do anything to, just because they want the resale value of it. To be there. Now, if, for example, in my case, my van and my Jetta, the Jetta was great. I wrapped it. I changed the wheels that had come on it. I changed everything that was on it when I bought it.
Right there?
Yep, that's it. That's the Jetta. Yep. And the van was just supposed to be a luxury, type of just nice van, convenience for when my daughters were a lot younger, but we ended up doing what we did. We looked up van culture. We started doing some things to it. And so I'm all for built, but I understand bought.
Yeah, right. And that's the thing is, like I said, people have different, there's a lot of people I've heard before, hey, I built my car. And I'm like, did you build it or did somebody else build it? And I go, it's a big difference. You know what I mean? And the thing is I kind of say, if you are part of the design team of something, not every person builds every single piece of their vehicle. Like I don't do the tires. I have the tires done by a tire guy. If I wanted to have the cage done, I'd have a cage guy build it. If you've ever built a race car, there's 72 hands in it before you're all done. But we have somebody else that joined the chat here, and I wanted to have them to introduce themselves and tell us what you're all about.
Well, I came on last week. I'm Alan Price. I've been in the scene since the mid-90s. I've had my Mustang, which we saw last week, since 98. But as this topic goes right here, the only thing I can claim that I did on it was the lighting and the stereo.
Yeah. So if anybody was
Everything
wondering
else I paid
if
somebody
you guys,
to do.
yeah, if you guys want to see Alan's car, if you go over onto YouTube, I think we have Reggie. Do we have past videos on the Facebook page too, right?
Yeah, it's on Facebook.
Yeah, so you guys can go back one there. We got a lot of people that are on now that weren't on last week, and they may not know about it. So I want to make sure that they have an opportunity to go back and check it. Dustin Alford says big difference is a custom modification versus dealer bolt-ons. Now that's an interesting. What do you guys feel about that? Now I think that that's a little limiting. I think there's a lot more to it. But what do you guys think about that dealer bolt-on thing? So I buy my Toyota. I like, for instance, the old Celicas and the Scions used to have the supercharger kit, and you couldn't have it installed because of EPA or whatever regulations, but you could bring it here and then have a TRD modification done to it, and then have that car be legal and still have the modifications from the factory that fit specifically with that vehicle. Joel, if you want to go first, go for it.
Well, I mean, that's a history thing too. I mean, if anybody remembers, like the Yanko Camaros that came out, which were like, dealer produced machines, and there's actually a Yanko tribute car that's actually local to me. It's actually not a real Yanko car, but it's like a tribute to it, which has like all that. And that was like a big deal back in the day, to be able to go from like a specific dealer or go to a specific dealer and actually have a custom built Camaro that had different options than the average Camaro. And that was a big deal. I think, today, I don't think that's as prevalent per se. I think it's much more prevalent in the 4x4 world. I know, our local dealership up in Concord, Banks GMC, they actually often have like what are special customized trucks that are done by a local place that they actually have done, and they put on their floor, and you can get them there specifically. But I think that the biggest manufacturer that does that, and the biggest dealership network that does that, I would say, is probably Jeep. You go on to Craigslist and you type in Jeep wheels, you are going to see thousands upon thousands of stock Jeep wheels that are actually put on by people who go to all of these dealerships and buy stock wheels that they're pulling off because the dealership is putting fuel wheels on or something like that.
Well, so I think about it like this too. Think about something like Buick. Buick did a lot of stuff that was factory based back in the day, but I would never hear anybody looking at a Grand National and going, "Oh yeah, that car's junk." Like that's it. The crazy thing is they dyno.
I don't think the Grand National was like a custom. I mean, that was actually built at the factory. I think
that's the point. Yeah.
Right. I think what I lean more towards is like when the actual dealership takes something and actually makes it more sellable and more original and more rare.
And in that case, there's all kinds of companies that do that now.
Yeah.
I mean, Mustang, you can go to a Shelby or a Roush. You can go Camaro and get big block. You can change the engine. You can do all kinds of modifications. They're still out there. You just got to be willing to do it. I mean, you can go get a truck and get whatever engine you want in it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to add this. Kennedy said something, and I think this is a great input here. Is I like a plain canvas personally, but buying something that has a little bit of head start isn't a bad thing either. I've done it in the past, and I've added a lot more to make it more my style. And that's something that's very cool about a lot of, and I think that should be done more with brands. For instance, the Genesis that I bought the R-Spec, and the reason is because it has the Brembo brakes. It had the tie bar. It had the camber links. It had all the stuff with it. So it was like, how much, it doesn't have cruise control. So it's like, how much am I taking out or putting back in? I didn't get all the excess junk, but I did get all the stuff that I wanted. And if I want to swap the motor out for a V8, that option is available to me. Do you know what I mean? Santos, you've been quiet over there. Give me some input, buddy.
Oh yeah, so the head start thing is actually a great idea, great concept, because like I said, when I bought the Jetta, it already had 18s on it, it had the intake, it had the exhaust, it didn't have the intercooler I put in it, it didn't have the divert I put in it, it didn't have the charge pipe, It didn't have the wrap color I put in it, the current wheels, the current tires, all that good stuff. So definitely a head start's always fun, but I do also agree with the plain canvas right from start. That's also a great opportunity there, because every single thing that goes into it, and you're not wondering about what if here, what if there, or what if this doesn't work and what if that works, kind of thing.
Right. So yeah, we had Dustin offered. There's a class for every ride at a few car shows. Most shows don't judge correctly for major mods like chop top, body drops versus typical modern muscle modifications, bolt-on superchargers, or number one of 100 made. That is huge. So now, I mean, and Dustin just hit it there. He's hitting both number of vehicles made. So you see a lower production vehicle that probably has a lot more power. I'm thinking like Hellcats and what is it? LS? What's the new Joel, what's the new Camaro one? LS7 or however
the
the
LS
wording was.
and LS8 and then
But yeah,
but I mean, just put LSX,
right,
exactly. Whichever kind of thing, which I think is actually hysterical, because it's like it can stand for any version of the LS motor that suddenly becomes rare. But when you start with just like a standard SS package. But do you remember? Back in the day when the Pontiac Trans Am came out, and the most sought after package was to get a Trans Am with a WS6 package.
That was my car, man. 97.
And here's the funny is, like, when you and I last week, we were kind of like reminiscing about some of the cars that you had, and the car that you had was actually, that was by no means the first WS6. The WS6 package had been around for years before that, and it got you so much more in that type of in that car, and made that particular F body the most powerful F body on the street.
And that's the thing is like how much more, like a lot of people would buy that car and would have happily driven it exactly the way it rode. It would have been an amazing car for them at the time.
I mean, my dad purchased a 1979 Trans Am with a WS6 package,
right,
and he still, on his deathbed, he proclaimed that the best car he ever owned. Not only was it the most fun to drive, but it was the most reliable car he ever owned as well. Right. It had thicker suspension. It had the 4-wheel disc brakes. It had the big block 403, which supposedly was odd. But that was just like an incredible package to have. And when my stepsister wanted to get her own 80s version of the Pontiac Trans Am, my dad told her, said, you got to get a WS6 package. No matter what you do, you got to get that package, because that's going to get you that much better of a Trans Am than anything else that's on the street. Right. And he was not wrong.
So what do you think about that, Alan?
The different engines or whatnot?
Well, the idea of buying something, in other words, let's have something and say, you know what? Do I buy the WS6 or
do I get the rare? Do I get the package deal, that has that rare thing? Corvette's got the Grand Sport is kind of like a good example
for me,
of that.
For me, if something happened to my Stang, and I got that big fat check from Haggerty that said, here, you got it replaced because you have that insurance on it, I'm going to go buy something done. I'm not going to start back over. I've had the car for 23 years. I've put a crap ton of money into it, and I have $65,000 worth of coverage on it. And if a tree fell on it or if it fell off the back of the trailer, I can go buy a really nice, done, custom vehicle that I ain't got to do nothing to.
What's up,
and that's where I'm at in life, because I have put so much money into a car that is not worth $5,000, $10,000.
Yeah, that's very interesting to say that too.
My car is 100% one-off. There ain't another one like it in the United States anywhere. Mm-hmm. And I've been shooting for 20 years, and I've never seen some of the patterns that are in my car right now.
Yeah, if you guys do have a chance, go back and look at that last episode and check out his Mustang. The everything about it is cool.
But in the same sense, I own a 722 that's patinaed out, and I had this big long list of everything I wanted to do to it. and I have Sunset, North Carolina doing something out of this world for me right now because I lost my wife a while back, and people in the scene that are fixing my mini truck and putting a 240 SX engine in it, 5-speed in it, changing the rear end, and getting my truck back right. But if I had to put the money into it to do that, I probably wouldn't, because I'm just to the point that 25 years of customizing, I just want to get my Mustang back to where it was in the early 2000s when I was rolling with Reggie, shooting for Reggie, and just put it back where it belongs to be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you ever have with the cars that you have, and again, sorry for your loss. The other thing is I wanted to ask is, with the car that you have, obviously it is done up and there is a fear at some point that, you know, maybe you break. A lot of us have built stuff that we go, it's built in a way that I can break it. You know what I mean? But with what you have done, that can be very specific and say, I think I might drive it less because I was afraid to break it. Has that ever been an issue?
Honestly, it just came out of the paint shop, and my buddy Steve Carter's got it back because we're doing a couple more things to it. And I used to drive it all the time. I have 5,000 miles insurance on it, but to many that stuff like that, it gets trailered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll tell you something to that.
That was the best decision.
Go ahead, Santos.
For that
I like
Mustang,
that.
was putting air right on it.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Santos.
Yeah, so I drive the van and the Jetta to show
6-7 hours away in that Mustang, and it rode like crap because it's not designed for trip driving.
Yeah. Go ahead, Santos.
Yeah, so we drive the van and the Jetta every day, every weekend to shows, and it's they're both our daily. So that thing about the fear of something happening to it, that's something that I live with every day, kind of thing. I've lost 2 cars before, one of them being a Durango RT that I was just starting to build that got T-boned, and that put me down for a bit. I didn't build cars for 2 years after that. I thought I was out of the game, but thankfully I'm back in the game, and here we are. It's just a risk that we take, I feel like for me, if something happens, I do have insurance on mine for every little part that I put on it. But for me, if something happens, it's something where it's like I can fix it, kind of thing, or it won't cost as much to repair.
Yeah, I think my first one was when I ripped I've been through 7 bumpers so far. None of them being my fault, always due to some stupidity. Like I had a truck tire come off of a truck and land sideways on the road, so that it was actually turned up, and I hit that full speed. Like I saw the truck pull over, and it was at night, so I'm like, okay, there's got to be something wrong here. And I wasn't even speeding, and I see this thing, and I'm like, what is that in the road? There's no, it's laying across the entire stretch of the road, and I'm like, I had to hit it, but yeah, and then the carbon fiber pulled the entire front bumper off. But that's the thing is the first time I came in, my wife is crying, everybody's falling apart, and then thankfully we had the good insurance, and I put all the stuff into it, and they were actually able to fix everything, put it back to the way the way I had it. They didn't even make the little kidney grills, if you will. They didn't make them anymore, so I had to have them redone, and it was in some respects a nightmare. But the idea that they were just like, hey, adjust it for whatever it is, and we'll fix it. And that's the thing that originally everybody taught me was like, these insurance companies won't do any of the aftermarket stuff. And I think that people kind of think of when. Yeah, so think about it when people are doing a build. I'm sure that there's certain things, obviously if it's a junk build, like if you're, building and I've always had that kind of dream of the old Civic that was, the patina look, or the old Volkswagen like Corrado, and have that look. And it's a car that I just want to buy it and just beat the crap out of it and just enjoy it for what it is. But then the thing is if I lower it too much and I rip the oil pan off, I'm not too brokenhearted because I didn't spend that much money in the first place. But that's different when it says, hey, you know what? I'm buying a 67 Camaro, or I'm buying a brand new whatever luxury car, or I'm buying this, like you guys are saying that, hey, I bought this Lamborghini, or I bought something like that. there's different things. I mean, every time I see somebody buy those cars, they immediately go in for some sort of coating, covering, something to protect the car from the early stages on. And that, I think, does play a part in whether you're actually buying something that's, like we were saying, built versus bought. If I built something, am I building it because I want to reach that high quality that, I want to outrun those LS7s, or I want to look unique? So I got an idea then. How about I'll start with you, Joel, too. Why would somebody build a car from stem to stern? And what do you think the minimum things are that you have to do to meet that level? And we'll go through everybody to kind of figure out what they think about that.
I think the main reason that I would do something like that is that I would know
what level for what.
So you're going to do something stemmed, as he said, stem to stern.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're going to tear that. You're going to tear that thing down, right? And I think like a lot of Jeep people do this, where they but also I think a lot of people, like in the classic car world, where they actually tear down to the frame and do what's called like the frame off restoration type of thing. And I think a lot of the reasons why people do something like that is that they want to make sure everything is perfect. Mm-hmm. And when you kind of get into the realm of like when you're getting like your dream car, why wouldn't you want to do that unless you know and or are able to see everything that you want to see within your car? I think I went to a point and a decision point on my Corvette where I kind of said, I don't need to go all the way down to the frame on this, because when I actually put it up for the first time and actually did an inspection of the underside, I was still finding like the actual like factory stamps on a lot of the frame parts, and even the exhaust still had some of like original tags on it. I of course ripped the exhaust out completely, but I was able to inspect it and figure out like, how far do I want to go? If you pull something like, like something from the 70s and something from the 60s or something like that, that may not be in that same kind of realm as something from the 90s or the thousands. You're gonna want to I think, and at least in my opinion, I would want to get to a point where I'm gonna do like a frame off so I can inspect everything, so that I can get that, not necessarily showroom quality, but definitely that show winning quality.
Right. So do you target more of the show, or do you want to look unique?
Me personally, I'm unique. I think that's exemplified by my Corvette. My Corvette does not have stock rims on it, although they are stock Corvette rims. They are not the stock rims that come on even the original Corvette series that they came off of. And my interior is changed somewhat. I tried to get rid of that 1995 like all red interior and try to add some accent colors onto it, kind of thing, to make it a little bit more palatable for the for the current and myself. So.
Well, I think this Dustin over here says it too. Buy a stock car and customize it your way, or buy a custom ride done and enjoy. Now, my friend just bought so the guy had, I want to say it was a Nova, and the guy had all this work that he had done to the Nova. Then he gets into it and he can't fix whatever problem he has. So my friend goes in, buys the car. Now he's got somebody that's specialized in doing what he's doing, goes into the car, pulls the stuff apart, finds a ton of different errors that are going on with the car, fixes the car up, and now the car looks perfect. So he hasn't really built this car, but I'm pretty sure nobody's going to know the difference.
Well, so, I mean, I kind of went that route, like with my Jeep. My Jeep was, for the most part, mostly done already. It already had the wheels on it. It already had the bumpers on it. I mean, I added lights. I ended up rebuilding the hardtop on it, and then I added some of the graphics on it. But fundamentally, it was mostly done. It needs a lot more, and I'm eventually going to start putting a little bit more on it. But the grassroots of it were essentially done when I got it, and I can see both worlds. I can certainly see I don't want to call it laziness by any means. It's just one of those, like, when I saw that Jeep on Facebook Marketplace, I just went, oh, I need that. It's like, it called to me, and I needed it. It wasn't a matter of
the off-roads are screaming at you. Is that your kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. My wife and I always wanted a Jeep, and originally, what was funny is that we wanted a square headlight Jeep, like from the 80s.
Oh yeah.
Right. And the funny thing is like trying to find a square headlight Jeep now that either A, hasn't been turned into a Jurassic Park vehicle, or is just so rusted and so bent that it's never going to be fully correct. Or if it is fully correct, it's like just priced out of the freaking like the world. So that's why we kind of like did like the best of both worlds. I found a TJ, and then I started just falling in love with them the more that I shopped around and started driving them, and then when I originally bought one for my kids, because when your kids are getting licenses and you want to get them into a car that they're not going to go 1,000 miles an hour in, but is also still going to be cool.
Mm-hmm.
A Jeep fits that bill like very, very well, especially when it's a standard. Because nobody's going to steal their car, because they're almost the only
person can still drive it.
and so that just turned into like a bonus for that particular situation. And when I got it, and like I had always wanted a Jeep, and then I gave you drive it while you're getting it ready for your kids to take over, and I just kind of did one of those. It's impossible to drive a Jeep without a stupid grin on your face. It just really is. It's slow. It's cumbersome.
Did you ever see the valet ticket that says we don't valet cars that are manual transmissions?
Oh, I love that.
I really was like, I woke up one day and I went, I'm in the twilight zone. But Santos, I'm going to start with you. So you know what? Think about it this way. What do you consider something that is a built car? What does that really mean to you?
I think the exotics are the ones that are built, like the Ferraris of the world, and the McLarens. Can't really do much kind of to them,
Oh, you mean that's a bought car, not a built car? Yeah, I had a feeling you went the wrong way.
I was going to say,
I'm not leaving that there. But yeah, what's built? Yeah.
So built would be like the Honda Civics, the GTRs, the Skylines, the Jettas of the world, those import cars or the muscle cars where you just put a bunch of performance parts on them, you take them to the track, or you take them to the shows.
So no engine swaps, just something where it's like intake, exhaust, maybe suspension, wheels, anything like that, and then it does what it needs to do.
Yeah, definitely. Engine swaps are cool. I've never done one in my experience. I've always wanted to do one, but engine swaps, I put that in there too, in that category for built.
Okay, Alan, what have you got for us, buddy? What do you think is a built car?
Well, I'm from the era that back in the day when Drop Jaw had class shows, and you had classes in every single genre of vehicle, and you had mild and wild. And that's when I vehicle. I look at a vehicle as mild. A mild's all your bolt-ons you're talking about. Somebody buys a hood, buys a wing, puts some wheels on it, puts some springs on it. That's all bought. That's all bolt-on. That's all mild. You have a fine line between factory, and then you have mild, and then you have somebody who has touched every single thing on a car and done something to it that changed it from factory. Then it's into wild.
Yeah.
And nowadays the shows aren't that way. There's nothing for classing because everybody loves top shows. So you know who's going to win as soon as you come in, because if it's a top 50 and there's 60 cars there, you know who wins.
Yeah, that's the thing is I think one of the biggest things is a lot of people need to find different shows. If you're seeing a show and you can't respect the show from the way and I'm not saying that the shows that don't think, hey, best 60 to 70 whatever, best, this look or best, some people, like a lot of the import shows I've seen, want to just go for that, mile to wild thing, and hey, if it's wild here, if it's got every stupid bolt on in the world, that car's going to win. But if those cars aren't shows that I don't respect, I'm going to stop attending them, and I'll find somebody that will put something together that I can respect, and maybe that's the old school thing. But yeah, that's the what was it? The idea of built, like I have my main car. Obviously, my other car was an '86 Porsche 944. That was completely stock. The idea of keeping all the numbers and everything there was supposed to be completely stock. I didn't want that car to be built up because it would hurt the value. But I did want to get naturally aspirated and put a V8 motor in it. But with my Genesis, before I did everything, that was my daily driver car, but I wanted it to look unique. So I bought the wheels. I bought the car with as much stuff as I could have in it. In other words, it could have the brakes, it had, the camber, but I wanted to put the wheels on it. I put some wrap stuff on it, and then I put the effects kits and stuff. And then I got race springs from NPR, put those on there. Those guys were amazing. Loved everything they did. But I didn't really do anything other than that. It was just to make the performance work, something that would really stick to what I needed it to do. And if I wanted to drive it to the track, I could. But that's the thing is I never really saw that car as being built. I think if I had put a V8 motor in that, then that would change everything for me. In other words, that would be a whole different car and say, but effectively everything that's in it right now isn't that out there and isn't built. But the other thing is we go back to the idea of built and restorations, and you know what I mean? That opens up a huge door. Go ahead, say it.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, on the built thing, you don't have a full engine swap. If we got a guy in our club that's got an old school Mitsubishi. Reggie, what's Larry got? I think it's a Mitsubishi. He's in my club. I don't know. I think he's got
Mighty
Max.
Yeah,
he's got a Mighty Max. And he's got, I mean, it's old school. It's on some 15 by 10s. I mean, it's just straight up old school. He doesn't have an engine swap, but his engine bay is clean, super clean. That's an up for me. Even though it's on a stock engine, he's taken the time to clean the entire firewall up, wire loom everything, clean all the wires, make sure that his engine's show worthy. It might not be an engine swap or something that's going to give him more power, but just the fact that he took the extra effort to make his engine bay that clean is an up.
Did you want to say something, Joel?
I think, I don't think a full-on engine swap needs to qualify as build, but and there is something to be said for doing any customizations to make the engine look faster, and I'm not talking about the Craigslist lower unit rebuild, which is basically taking a spray can and spraying the freaking block down and saying, hey, I rebuilt the lower end. Yeah. No, I'm talking more of if somebody's willing to even take, I would consider a built. That's a good example. I would think it would be an LS motor where you can actually program an ECU differently in it, even though you may or may not change out the main components. You may do an intake swap. You may do an exhaust swap or something like that, but then do a tune to it to actually match said swaps. Yeah. I consider that build. I don't think an entire engine swap has to go on that. I would say you in judging your car on whether or not it's built, the fact that you went as far as to improve handling not only with wheels and tires, but you also went on suspension route. You may have not played that much with the motor, but I think you've done enough to make it like sound differently and all that. I would consider it at least moderately built, in that, you know, you could track that.
Now we're getting into levels of build.
Well, and I think there are. I don't think
Nothing wrong with that.
I don't think there's like a limitation on built, you know, kind of thing. There is different levels, and I think everybody would go along with that. I can't imagine that anybody would just say like, well, you have to gut the whole thing and like. Right. And
but some people do that
completely out. And kudos to you if A, you have the skill level to do it, and B, you have the cash to do it.
That's where I see all of them fail, is when I got this great idea for a project and my budget does not, I never budgeted my project and my bank account doesn't match.
You know what's funny though?
Budget, so
what's funny about that is, like, I know a guy, he's an older gentleman who's got a 1970 GTO. It's a gorgeous car. It's mostly stock.
Mostly.
But it actually has, and he jokingly refers to them as the Ames store modifications. So it's like, you remember back in the day with Ames, Bradley's, like all of the, like the smaller chain department stores. Riches was like another one that was big up in the Northeast.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Right. And they had like the chrome air cleaner, the stupid,
the old Pepperoni special.
Right. The gas pedal that was shaped like a foot. What? You know, like right, like all of that stuff that was like on the shelf over there, and this guy's car, it's gorgeous. The engine bay is absolutely pristine, but it has all of those Ames department store modifications that you could buy like right off the shelf. Is that built? I mean,
yeah, right.
It's certainly not stock, you know, by any means.
I think that's the difference between just what shows you're showing at. I mean,
right.
I've heard you guys say local shows and classic shows. I honestly don't show at those shows. I get my butt up and I go to shows that keep me in my same realm of kind of people that do what I do for a living or what I do for a show. Okay. So it puts me to Mini Truck and Nats and Dropped Out and Slam Fest and big shows. Mm-hmm. And there's no guarantee that there's going to be any paperweight or trophy for me, but at least I'm going to someplace where I have competition.
Right.
And I get a local show, and I get people that don't know how to judge, don't know how to look at a car. I've taken a Mustang and I've turned it into a lowrider, but it's not got wires on it. It's on air, and they're confused.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I said before, and that's why I think I wanted to stress that, and it's why I didn't want to focus too much on the show thinking, was because what happens is that when you make a car and you bring it to a show, you better know what that show's all about. You know what I mean? But if you ask the question about what's built, we have Dustin over here. Dustin Alford says every single piece is touched, while Tyler says a build is a little different depending on the type of vehicle. So
I love his follow-up. You can't really compare
how to judge that.
Yeah. And I'm not worried about the judging. I want to worry about how we ourselves, because the judging is based on the community, not based on a judge. I judge is never going to capture the same thought process that a judge can say that car won, and I may completely disagree because I'm a concourse guy.
Right. I mean, let's face it. Let's face it. Judges are subjective, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. They're like it or not, they are opinionated. You're and as much as they're going to try and say that they're not, they truly are, because a guy who normally judges Corvettes is going to go to, like, if he gets asked as a guest judge at like anything, he's going to see the first Corvette, and he's going to be going over to that and going through it and saying, "Oh, this is the best car out here," kind of thing.
So if you brought your Corvette to an import show, it's all about aftermarket work.
Right.
You go, I'm not expecting a trophy today. When the guy that comes
and honestly, honestly, I never expect a trophy, no matter where I go. I mean, my car will, like, my joke about my car is my car will turn heads, but she'll never win a trophy,
even though it won a trophy.
Hey, but again, it won a trophy. It won a trophy only because it was.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
No,
I completely understand.
I build it to try to have competition.
Right.
Yeah, I've been to a few shows this year. I didn't win a single one, but I finally won my first trophy in 3 years.
You got to introduce yourself, buddy.
It's Danny from New England Innovations. But yeah, I won my very first trophy after in like 3 years of showing off the car.
Right.
I was a little proud of that.
What do you think had you earn that trophy for that day? Was there anything that you think specifically put you over the top?
I had with my car, it was one of the best cars, and I had the best display for trunk or treat.
Right. I think and that's the thing see, this is something, and this is why I don't want to get shows involved in the thinking of this, is because display, if you want to win a car show, and I'm not saying every car show, but I'm saying if you want to win a car show, there's two things that really make you win a car show, and that is clean and presentation. I brought cars that were completely stock to shows that somebody said I couldn't win and won a trophy just because the thing was just literally detailed to the hilt. And number two,
answer Dustin's point here.
Yeah, please.
I have something to say on Dustin's.
Yeah, go ahead.
On what he just put up there, points judged in top 42 different shows.
Yes.
I know Dustin. So does Reggie. But, and I say this because we used to put on show card selection. Ran for 23 years. And it cost us $20,000 to $30,000 to put on that show.
Nice.
And that was just pretty much to cover a 3-day weekend and everything else. Yes, points judging is completely different. But the guys that judged at Slam Session that are still part of Animated, we've been judging other shows here recently in their top 40s and top 80s. Rusty, Rod, all the guys in my club, we still look at a top 40, top 50, 60, 100. We still look at it as the same points way that we would judge if we were doing a class show. But that's just about respect of a show that you're judging for. And
now are you saying points as an overall? In other words, everybody is into a points pool, or are you saying there's a difference between like class? In other words, like class judging and overall judging kind of thing. And we lost him.
In 2013,
you're gonna have to start over.
We have 100 classes that all had first, third, mild, and wild. Yeah. They were all points based, and when we judge a top 40, 25, whatever, we still look at our sheets. Per sheet still has a points thing on it, just like we were judging for a class show. Yeah. I just judged one 3 weeks ago that was a whole top 15, and we still had points to each car, no matter if they were mild or if they were a stock classic or they were a motorcycle. They still got their points based on what they were.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were saying based on what they were, was there anything, and this is something where I think Reggie, this is something we need to bring back up for next week, because I think that we're all kind of circling around the same thing, and I want to dive a little bit more into this. When you do the judging, you were saying they get judged on what car. Do you have specific judges that are specialized in each type of vehicle that comes into the show, or is it, you just kind of the judge is a judge?
Well, when we had the main things, there were people that were specialized to what they went to, like Rod, who's been running lowrider all his life. He would judge that. But there again, if you haven't heard a Slam Session or Freak Show or anything that Drop Jaw put on, we had classes for everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know how to answer that question, because
it's okay.
You go to look at car, and you look at the car like what it is. If you have a mild car that has very little done to it, you still have to judge it as what it is.
Yeah.
And it compares against anything else that's just a mild car. Now you take 5 lifted trucks; those are all in their own little thing, and we've got to judge it that way.
Right. And I'm going to add in here, Mo Mobley says an import guy has no clue on how to judge a lowrider. I completely agree on that in some respects. There are guys guys that, in other words, that are lowrider guys that would totally understand things. I think it is based on the person, not based on the class list. In other words, I drive an import car, but I would be very good at judging a lowrider show. And it's the thing is you gotta get to the skill set of the person that's doing it. And I think a lot of that has to do with the person that turns the wrenches, and whether it be somebody that's done it before or somebody that's not. And again, this is something we're going to go into on next show, but I also want to hit Dustin's here. Every aspect of a car is judged. You don't open your doors, 0 for interior. Don't open the hood, 0 for motor. Dustin, I'm going to add something to that, which I think is it's something that's so key here that really hurts everybody that I've ever judged before. And we're talking thousands of people here. When you're ready to be judged, go up to the desk and ask when the judge is going to be there, and be there with your car. Do not put a sticker on your car and walk away from the car and don't do anything and then think, hey, I'm going to ace this thing.
Are you ready?
Yeah, no, I think he's talking about all of us. That's the thing is these guys you'll have a judge show. The judge shows up. I look over and I say, who's the owner of the car? Nobody knows who it is. The doors are locked. The car has 5% tint on the windows. And here I am trying to judge your car. The other thing that I said about every car that we ever judged was, and I took it to some new level with this too, is there's history involved with your car. There's a process that you went to that I think that nobody in any show that I've ever run to, other than the stuff that I've done, that held some kind of, this is where this car came from. The amount of times that somebody has done a car for their grandfather, I had somebody that did it for their passed away child, that the stuff that goes into these things and the presentations that are involved with them, they're your creations. Be with them when the judge is standing there and he's saying, what's so special about your car? There's going to be times that judges don't know. So a lot of times when we're judging something and somebody says, well, they didn't judge my car. Primo didn't judge my car right. And I go, okay, where were when I judged the car? I told you when I was going to be there, 10:30 sharp or whatever. I'm doing your row. The guy's not there. And he says, you know what? I missed something that was on the undercarriage of the car that I missed it. Oh, well. Be there and talk to people, and you're going to change it so much about what your show is. But here, Tyler, I believe that a short interview with the owner when being judged is perfect. Please, by all means, every judge out there, live and love that. That's no matter what kind of car show you're going to, you're going to get a winner with that. But one thing I do think that we've determined tonight, because I do think we really got way off topic, which is fine. And I do think that it was something that was important to address. Reggie, I think next week, I think the biggest thing that we need to talk about, and I want Alan, I'm hoping you're going to come back to it because I think you have a lot of good input with this, is let's talk about car shows. Let's talk about that judging process. Let's talk about how to judge better or be judged better. I'm tired of people that come up to a show, both when they run it or judge it. There are judges out there that don't judge car shows anymore because the criticism is just sometimes unfair. And sometimes the person being judged is treated unfairly. I want us to kind of meet in the middle there. And I think next week's show would be a perfect time to do that. But for now, we're at the end of the show. We're at that hour mark. I want to thank everybody that came in tonight. I want to thank Danny from New England Innovations, Alan Price, Joel Chappell of NewEnglandAutoShows.com, Santos of the Level 7 Car Show, and Reggie, you got something to say there? Or?
Oh, yeah. What you just said, the topic next Wednesday, if anybody knows anybody that wants to get involved, that puts on a show or event or major show,
Mo Mobley just on here. He won't come on.
He won't come on.
Mo Mobley said he's going to be there next week. So I want everybody who's involved with car shows. That's a great idea. I think that would be a perfect topic.
I think we're burning it on it. We want to talk about it, and you know what? It's a conversation that never gets old. We can always talk about it, and there's always something to say. I don't care if you run one show or you run a million shows, you always have something to learn. There's always something you're going to forget, because if you're a one person or a 10-man team, stuff falls through the crack. It just happens. So you know what? Let's have a conversation and just see what we can get out of it. So thank you guys for tuning in. Remember, this has been the ECS Hangout. We're here every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time, presented by East Coast Styles Magazine. Remember, ecsmagazine.com. Remember, we're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. We're probably on even stuff I don't even know about. And we're sponsored by controlfreakcompany.com. Remember, if you have a topic, if you want to say anything, if you want to join it, there's my boy Reggie over there. He'll be happy to put in for doing everything. I want to thank all of our guests, all the people out there that were in the chat. You guys did great tonight. I love the conversation. We always learn from it. And you know what? Unfortunately, tonight, we didn't learn what was different between store-bought and built. Maybe it'll be something we'll learn down the road. We'll always be
honestly, I don't think we ever will.
I don't think we ever will anyway. And Kennedy says, buy that November issue. We will be happy to. You guys do it as well. Thank you guys for tuning in. You have a great night. We'll see you next Wednesday. At what time, Joel?
7 o'clock.
All right. See you guys, 7 p.m. Eastern next Wednesday. Talk to you then.
Have a great evening.